Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today, our guest is a gentleman from England who is from Jamaica. His name is Leroy Roberts. Leroy, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Thank you so much, Craig. It's an absolute pleasure being here with you and to share with your amazing audience. And I just look forward to the amazing discussion that we'll have. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we were talking off air before we got started about Leroy's got an 8-year-old son, and you live in the southwestern part or southeastern part of England?
Southwest.
Southwest. Okay. And because you're a leadership expert, and now that I know you're a father, how does the principles that you teach show up at home? How do you lead your family, and how do you lead your son, and you may have other kids too, in alignment with how you coach your executives to lead their teams?
That's a great question, Craig. And I've never had anyone ask that question before. If I may just take a moment to burn that through my mind. First of all, thank you for asking that question. It's a really good one. So I do have a son, 8, and a young daughter who just turned 5. So 2, and that's me. My plate is full because we don't get taught how to properly do this. You learn on the job, and trust me, it's a lot of learning so far. And there have been wins and losses. But you are right, and I think it's a great analogy to use because just being a family man, there's so much you learn, and there's so much lessons you can take from that and apply to life in general. And the beautiful thing I love about children is the fact that they're honest and they give you genuine feedback. And when you do find yourself in a state of incongruence, when your words, deeds, and action are not appropriately aligned, then they will call you out. And so I have to be on my tiptoes. And after all, they do get themselves immersed in some of the material that I read and consume. So hey ho, my job is a whole lot harder as a result, but it's really good fun.
One of the things I would add to that is that every stage you go through, it's the first time they've gone through it, and it's the first time you're going to go through it. So when your son turns 13 and you have a teenager, it's the first time he's been a teenager, but it's the first time you've been a father of a teenager. So you're both learning on the go all the way through. And then when they move out of the house, you're still learning on the go because nobody teaches you how to be a parent of an adult. So it's a lifetime journey. But name one principle. Mention one principle that you teach your leaders to lead their teams that you can use at home, and it's just as effective in the home as it is in the boardroom.
That principle is the one that I believe is in my DNA, and my entire life has been characterized by that. And that's the principle of service. Service. I believe if we approach everything from that perspective, then we are best positioned to make the very most impact we can. Because service is about ensuring that other people are served and we are guaranteeing outcomes. And when you are so outcome focused, the aim, of course, is always transformation. And that's what people need. We don't need words. We don't need theory only. We need meaningful change. And the best way to bring that about is service. And if you look around, what we're having is the complete opposite of the spirit of service and practice too.
I think it's easier to serve your kids because they do give you direct feedback. They give you honest feedback. They give you immediate feedback. You see the joy on their faces. You see their body language. They don't play poker with you. You can experiment with different acts of service and see which ones resonate with your kids the most. And your kids, although they're yours, they're different and they're different genders, so they may not respond the same. So you might use different acts of service for your daughter than you do your son. But in the corporate world, people don't give you honest feedback. People don't give you immediate feedback. People do play poker. They poker face you. And so I think it's almost more difficult to lead in the corporate world than it is at home. Because in the corporate world, there's this notion that if you have the bigger title, you're supposed to be served. And so when you get that big title, you're a C-suite person, like, well, let's go, take care of me, do my work for me. And I think there's a shift. I think everybody starts out in the corporate world serving, but I think that there is a culture that's almost like a counterfeit culture in corporate America where when you get to a certain level with certain companies, it's different. And you want to flip the script. You no longer want to serve. You want to be served. What is your perspective on that?
No, I think that was beautifully said and beautifully expressed, and you have put it quite cogently. And I would love to hear you dig a little deeper and to share that. But of course, I will add my contribution to that. You're perfectly right. And this is something I've experienced firsthand. And because there is so much duplicity and trickery involved in the entire process, you have to be a good reader and judge of people. And I think one of the things that I'm so grateful for my whole experience for is that I have had the opportunity and the experience to learn people. I've always said my time serving in the Jamaica Constabulary Force back in the Caribbean, that organization has its roots dating back to 1716. And of course, the British Army go all the way back to the 1500s. So well over half a century of history and culture. And some of it has not changed much over time. And I have to live in that system, and I would have had to experience that personally. And I think over time, what that experience did for me was provided me the opportunity to immerse myself in those moments. And because of the attitude that I took towards that, I always looked for the learning. And as a result, even though the experience I've had has been mixed, I have not come away from it bitter, but rather better positioned to serve and to deal with some of those issues. And I think that's what my entire life is about now, because I'm extremely passionate about leading teams and teaching people how to do that. And disconnection really is a disease. And I think I have some contribution to make in that area, because I saw many opportunities that were missed during my time, when other people who were in charge but who were not really leading failed to deal with issues which lead to toxicity, failed to address concerns which could create a better environment for all, which would lead to better outcomes. But unfortunately, that opportunity was missed. But the pledge I've made is to create a better future. And of course, to leave the world better than how I have found it, and to be the leader that I never had. And that's my approach and commitment to creating a solution-focused attitude. And hopefully I will inspire others to get on board to make their contribution also.
Well, one of the things I see on teams when you have leaders, whether it's C-suite people, whether it's coaches, whether it's quarterbacks in sports, is the concept that they can't lead themselves. So because they don't do a very good job of leading themselves, they struggle leading other people. And so I think leadership for me starts with your identity, who you are as a person, who you are as a man, who you are as a professional, depending on what scope of work you're in, and learning how to be a great leader of your own self, of your daily habits, how you respond to people. What's your morning routine? How do you block out time? How do you manage your time? How do you respond to curveballs? How do you respond to adversity? And so I really feel like when your kids are 5 and 8, they don't listen to anything you say. They just watch you. They just watch. It doesn't matter what you say. That's why you have to tell them look both ways before they cross the street 5,000 times. Because they ain't listening. But if you don't look both ways, they're not going to look both ways. So one of the most important characteristics of a great leader is someone that can lead himself or herself first. Then you got the capacity to serve others. Then you got the capacity to communicate and coach others. But I think there's so many leaders in our world. You're in Europe right now. In our world, they think they're great leaders, but nobody listens to them, because everybody that knows them, the more you know them, the more you realize they can't lead themselves. What's your perspective on that?
Wow. Amazing. As I listen to you talk, I could listen to you for a very long time. I think you deserve a medal. Now, I really like the way you think, and I really like the freshness of perspective, because when I have conversation with so many and when I observe, let's just say not many people are on the same wavelength. And of course, that is why we have the issues we have. But you are perfectly right. Leadership is first personal, and it begins with you. And that is why I believe that not until when we get to that place where we recognize who we are, our own worth and our own value and our importance to the world, we will not get a sense as to what is it that we were put here on this planet to do. And we all have a unique contribution that we make. But that's all emanating from self-worth, self-esteem, and self-concept. And that's rooted in identity. And sadly, the culture within which we live and society on a whole has been so construed to rob us of that identity, because sadly, a business has been built on that lack of identity, and it's quite profitable as well. And I think as coaches, well, true coaches, we are here to help remedy that issue and to let people recognize that the place where you start is by looking in the mirror, the place where you start with you. And until when you can lead you, you're not really fit to lead no one else. And sadly, we have many people who are in position of leadership who should not be there.
So what is, when you coach an exec, or maybe you give a keynote, what is your primary message? What is your theme that you want to communicate to your audience that maybe equally applies to everybody? Whether you're, assigned for the county and, in construction, or if you're a CEO, CFO, or one of those kind of people working in some tall office building somewhere, what is the common thread that applies to everybody with respect to leadership?
The common thread has to do with the mindset. And I think far too many people have picked up bad habits from other people who were ahead of them that frankly were not true leaders. And we believe that our worth is tied to our title, to our position, to our pay grade. And that is why we fight so hard to defend our position, and we'll destroy anyone else who we perceive as threats are a threat to us. And that is what is heating the whole concept of service and making an impact and empowerment. And to dismantle that mindset is my aim and my mission. So I want to know what really drives people. What is it that they are passionate about? What is it that they would do if resources were never an issue? What is it that they would do if there was no restriction and there was no demand on them in life that they cannot meet? And I had to get there myself personally. And I'm happy that I have figured out what those things are that is near and dear to me, those things that I'm passionate about. And I like to describe it in this way. Most people say that when they're talking about something that they love, you'd have to pay me a lot of money to stop doing it. But I tend to reverse that, where I say, the thing that I know that I was designed to fix and what I'm good at, which is, of course, is to see people advance. And that is why I'm a coach. I want to see people do well. I am not intimidated by people's success, and I want to see people be their very best. And I'm willing to help them to get there. And I know that in the process of doing so, I have to be humble enough to accept being second, even when I was first. And most people have not gotten to that point yet. So with all that being said, I came up with the phrase, there is no amount I could be paid to prevent me from being committed to my passion, which is to see people flourish, to see people do well. And I think the challenge that I am so fixated on now is to fix the issue of disconnection. And the recent Gallup poll suggests that engagement is now at an all-time low, 23%. Billions of dollars, close to $1 trillion is spent in the personal development area of training and coaching and mentoring. But yet still, why is it that people are so disengaged? Why is it that the issue is not being remedied? I think I have an idea what it is. And I also believe from our conversations so far that you too, you're catching on to it. And we just need to have more people on board to see this and to get these people to recognize that unless we fix this, no one else will. And that is important. It's our job. We have to do it.
Where's the disconnection come from? What's the root of the cause of disconnection?
The root has to do with lack of trust, and there's no going around that. At the very root of the problem that we are facing in every aspect of life, whether it be in government, in the finance field, health, there's a lack of leadership, there's a breakdown of trust because our institution has been overtaken by charlatans, by people who are self-serving, by people who are just there to feather their own nest and for themselves. They are not about creating transformation. They're not about delivering value for all stakeholders. They say those things, but their actions are far from it. How could you explain why their priorities are so out of whack? Because they say all the right stuff, but when it comes to marrying words deed and action, then that is totally absent. And as a result of that, that has created a massive disconnect between those who lead and those who are being led. And the trust and the distrust gap is getting even wider. And the truth of the matter is you can't fake it, because even the dumbest person on the planet after a while will catch on to what's going on.
Let's say you're a leader and you sense that perhaps even before you got there, there was a mistrust between the people that are being led and the person that held your position. You're stepping into that position and they're not going to trust you any more than they trusted the person before you. But what are the steps that you can take as a leader to build trust with your team?
Leadership is all about relationship. And relationship is built by supply needs. For example, if in your marriage, that's a relationship. How do you maintain that relationship is by meeting needs. Likewise, parent to a child. How do you sustain that relationship is by meeting the needs. We need to identify where people are. We need to genuinely listen to them and find out what their concerns are. And we also need to help them to do well, to succeed. I think for far too long, we have this transactional extraction mindset where it's take, take, take. And we think because people are being compensated, that's all there is. But people need to be affirmed. People need to be respected. People need to feel that they're appreciated. And these are not difficult acts, but they are just not practiced because they are considered to be soft skills and soft activities, but rather they are critical activities. And I've worked with many people, and I was having a conversation once with an employee who said to me, and I asked him, so what's one thing that you would change? And surprisingly, he never asked for a raise. He said, I just need a bit more respect. That's all. Bit more respect. But the sad thing is, the leader in that organization would never get that feedback from that employee because, again, of the distrust, because the relationship is not there. It's not about strategy only. How we fix this problem going forward is by fixing relationship. And that is where I think as leaders, we need to invest in ourselves, because we too need to become more relationally and emotionally developed to best be equipped to address these issues and concerns. It's hard work and it takes time and practice.
I'm going to answer my own question there. Take a shot at it anyway. How do you build trust? You don't build trust in a day. You build trust over time, where you go through situations where you have to choose your best interest compared to your people's best interest. And you have to be consistently choosing their best interests over yours. You have to also consistently do the right thing, even if it's not in your best interest or your people's best interest. And when they figure out that you will do the right thing consistently, regardless of the consequences, regardless of whether it hurts your bonus structure, your compensation, your recognition, your power, whatever it might be, trust will go through the roof. Because, I mean, think about the father-child relationship. We are blessed with trust from the jump. And then over time, we do things to lose their trust. It works the opposite way. Kids give trust to strangers without even knowing them. And you warn them that that person might not be trustworthy. But in the corporate world, I think it's works reverse from family in the sense that everybody's skeptical. Everybody's looking for the hidden agenda. Everybody thinks the person's going to sacrifice the team for their own favor and benefit and advancement and financial gain. And so until that situation comes up and you show your people that you're not going to do the selfish thing, you're going to do the right thing, then the trust goes through the roof. So I think, kids, we trust until we don't. As adults, we don't trust until we do.
Wow, that was beautifully said. The only thing I will add is the fact that it takes courage. It takes courage to do the right thing because it's not popular and you will not have many fake friends, and you will have to make that courageous step to make that decision to live and base your decision for the betterment of all on sound principles. And to be a leader that will eventually be trusted is to be a leader that is committed to principles.
Okay, let's talk about principles. Give me one that if a company has it, a team has it, it thrives. And if they don't have it, it struggles.
Integrity. And it is sad that is a critical element that is missing in many, many areas. And it's an offshoot of distrust kills that as well. It's a killer of integrity. Integrity, again, comes with consistency in our action, consistency and a commitment to our values and a commitment to all stakeholders. And a commitment not only to being profitable, but being also impactful to ensure that the community within which we operate is best served for the long run. And if we have integrity, then we will have the delivery of better outcomes for all stakeholders. And sadly, in most cases, that's not the situation. And I'm happy that for me and you and others out there, we are not just here to scream and to point the issue out. Our life work is to fix this. Our life work is to remedy this situation. And in so doing, we hope to inspire others to join the fight because it's a noble cause. Because if we want to create a better society, then there is no other way. It has to be fixed by us. After all, it was broken by us.
One of the things I see in our society today is a very strong breakdown of the family unit, and for lots of reasons. Not just infidelity, that's probably number one, but busyness and career ambitions and lots of different things. But I think what I wrote down and what I was processing through my mind when you were talking was the concept that the most important relationship is the marriage relationship. Sometimes you have a corporate wife, you have a work wife. What does that mean? That means that you serve them, right? Our kids see everything reflects the marriage relationship. So if you're telling your kids all the right things, you're teaching them the most important principles of life, and you treat your wife like you shouldn't treat your wife, your kids don't hear you. They summarily dismiss it because you don't have alignment. You don't have integrity with yourself because you're telling them to do one thing and you're doing another. So I think, like a lot of corporate relationships, take out the romantic part of it, need to mirror the family relationships. You have to have a hierarchy. Dad's got to be in charge. Parents have to be on the same page. You can't throw your wife under the bus to your kids so that they like you more. If you guys come up with an understanding, you're not going to stop and get ice cream on the way home from wherever you went, and they start begging for ice cream, and you're like, oh, okay, we'll go. It's like you just contradicted what you and your wife had agreed to do. Think about how that happens in companies all the time. It's like, hey, we're going to do this. And then all the employees, all the team members go home. They show up the next day and now we're doing something else. Well, what happened? Oh, we went out for drinks. Oh, we stayed out late in the hotel bar and we just made an executive decision. We're going to change the strategy. How does that make the team feel? Not very good. So it's like if you can have consistency, integrity, trust, and service, and almost like a family relationship, although it's not family, even though it's your work family, then you can have perhaps a very productive organization, a lot of authenticity and transparency buy-in between all the members and the leaders and the team members. And it all goes back to home. So all those guys, and I'm ladies too, but all those guys that don't take care of their families and don't have great relationships with their wives and don't have loyalty to their wife, they can't have loyalty to their people at work. So one of the things I saw in sports over and over and over again, when a guy had two relationships, he also had struggles with his coaches. He had struggles with his money. You can't isolate that, put it in a closet, put it in a box and say, oh, I'm just going to do that with girls, man. Just with girls, nothing else. It permeates into every part of his life. And so think about how many CEOs that are cheating on their wives on company trips, and it destroys the entire culture of the company because once everybody finds out, they don't trust him anymore. So here's this guy working 16 hours a day, sacrificing his whole life for the company. And the people that are supposed to be busting their butt don't care. They're looking for another job because they don't even trust him.
Wow. Fully said. And again, it was an amazing tour of the horizon. Now, again, I will just add to it. A family, as you rightly mentioned, is the very first institution, and that even comes before society. And if the home is not okay, how can the society be? And what we have been having is where the first institution, being marriage and the family, has been losing its footing. And we have seen where the state is stepping in and also coordinating things. And that happened for many reasons. And that's another discussion for another time. But what we have to do as husbands and leaders is that we have to set boundaries. We have to ensure that boundaries are in place. And when you have a boundaryless life, as an old saying goes, I remember when I was in the Caribbean, they said, puppy love leads to dog life. So you have to control that. And if you don't put the necessary things in place, then you will get what you do not want. So it's no surprise that we are in this predicament. It's no surprise that we are in this mess because we neglected the boundaries. We never value them, and we never value what's first. We never value the relationship in the home between our spouse, between our children. But yet still, if you fail at those first hurdles, how can you expect to go out there and to command respect and to be dominating in that field? The cracks are going to show up because you brought them with you wherever you were going. So that's what I would like to add to what you have said.
Okay. So you wrote a book. What's the title of your book?
Good. Amazing. So it's two books, actually. So the first book, which is coming soon, has to do with standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's a
Say that
fitting
one more
title.
time, Leroy.
Standing on the shoulders of multi-millionaire giants. And this one is an anthology. And I love it because it is also written alongside other authors who have come together to share their journey, their story, and the principles that they were committed to that ultimately led to their success. And it's a way of giving back to let people know that success is not a mystery. There is a blueprint to success. And if you're willing to put in the work, and if you're willing to go through the process, then of course you can arrive at that place. And moreover, for people like me and you, we know that success is not all there is. There's a level beyond success, which is the level of significance, where after you have climbed the wall, you want to help others up the wall with you also. And significance is the ultimate place to be. So that's what that book is about. And that is where I share my story of generational grit and just who I have become and I am becoming over time. And if I may mention, the second book I have is a leadership book. And in fact, the whole company, Teamwork Solution, was based off that concept. And that is the idea which speaks to the fact that all teams has value, but not all teams add value. And what I sought to explain in that book with my framework is how, as a teamwork strategist, how I come in and help people empower their team to deliver their best, and ultimately to help leaders who are struggling with disconnected teams and who are struggling with issues like low morale, increased profitability, and high turnover, remedy that situation. In a nutshell, that's what those two books are about.
Let's talk about significance. Kind of give us a compare and contrast between significance and success.
Success is about you, significance is about others. And you can't get to significance until you have first achieved success. Now, that doesn't mean having a lot of money or having a lot of stuff. What that means is success is an ongoing thing to begin with, but you have a vision for your life and you are moving in a particular direction. And as you move, you're inspiring others to do likewise. And it doesn't mean you have to get to the end of some place before you can bid others come along and pursue your own path. You should be encouraging people at each step of the way because you're always ahead of someone and someone is always ahead of you. So success dovetails into significance, and that's how I hope most people understand it, because that's the correct view of it.
Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper on something here. If success is about more what I'm doing, and through that success, I'm building credibility with other people, I'm creating influence, and now I can step into my significance by helping them do them, whatever their dream is. How somebody listening here is like, I just want to be successful. What's the blueprint for being successful? What are the primary principles in your mind for helping somebody be successful?
The primary principle is to become valuable. Now, the beautiful thing is you are already valuable. Never forget that. But the challenge is most people, their value has not yet been instrumentalized. It's just stored. It's inherent. nobody can benefit from that. And that is where we have to pursue our dreams. And that's where we have to develop ourselves to the fullest extent to ensure that we are contributing to society. And once we have found what our life work is and we're fully committed to ensure that we are living that way, and again, it's a journey, it's a direction. Every day you should be better than the person you were before. And the better you become, the more valuable you will be to yourself, to your family, and to society. So it's about becoming valuable, and not valuable to you, yourself only, but valuable to yourself and others.
Okay, I'm taking notes here. I feel like companies have their own DNA.
Mm.
And families certainly do, and people medically do, but families have DNA. You have brought into your family your past, basically your personality, your values, everything, your whole identity. Your wife has done the same thing. And you're from Jamaica. Where's your wife from?
Also Jamaica.
Okay, so you're bringing the Jamaican jam to England, right? Or wherever you go. But right now you're in England. But it's like she grew up in a different home than you, different traditions, similar, but different too. And what I think companies fail to remember is that they do the same thing to their organizations.
Mm.
They all bring in their perspective, their history, what they did at the last company they worked at, what they read about. And so when somebody leaves, and even when somebody new comes in, they're bringing in something from somewhere else. And I think it's, part of trust, I'm kind of circling back. Part of trust is communicating transparently so that everybody can meet everybody where they're at. And I think too many leaders just expect their people to be right here. But you know what? At one point in time, that leader was down here, and most of his or her people may be down here. And so when you're trying to be here and they're there, you create a disconnection. But if you meet them where they're at and understand what you said, which is there's a journey, which is progress, which is, going through different stages, you got to find out what stage they're in and help them through your significance, help each person go through their stage to get to the next level with the goal that they get to your level. But by the time they get to your level, you're going to be at a higher level. So as a leader, you always has to be a gap between where you're at and where your people are. Otherwise, you can't lead. You can set examples from behind, but people aren't going to follow you because you haven't traveled the road that they want to go on. So as a leader, just to kind of wrap this up, you have to understand that you're on this journey, this path. You're at a certain kilometer marker, and not everybody's with you. They haven't crossed the bridges you had to cross. They haven't had to overcome the adversities you have had to overcome. They haven't got there yet. Thoughts on that?
You're perfectly right. And this leads to another very important thing, which is what is lacking at the moment, and that is mentorship. Sadly, too many leaders do not mentor others. They do not create successors. And again, it's because of an erroneous concept to which they are beholden. And I know as you were explaining further, which I would like to touch a bit on, and then I will swing back, is the fact that you can't lead people if you're not going anywhere. But you have those leaders who have become lazy, who are unwilling to grow. And when the people around them who are hungry to learn and to be at another level, they want to grow, they want to be empowered, then those leaders feel threatened and they contain other people. So that's another challenge again. And any self-respecting person who find themselves in that situation where they are being contained, they will leave. That is why people are losing good talents. Because again, we need to get this very clear. Not all employees or workers are motivated by money. Some people have already met their financial goal, and what they are concerned about is purpose and giving back and making an impact. And that often get missed. And that disease mindset is what lead to leaders not training others to do the work that they have done. And it is sad when I still see today how much people are intimidated by the success of the people around them. I am not intimidated by my own children. In fact, I want them to go beyond me. I want them to become better than me. And I think, again, that's one of the wonderful concepts I'm happy that I have inherited from my upbringing, is that my parents never had many of the wonderful things that I've come to understand. But their dream was always for us to go beyond them. And as leaders, we should want to help the people around us go beyond us. And we're not there yet. But we need to invest in the future. We need to invest in those around us, or else we have no future. In fact, the only word in the dictionary that has the word success in it is succession. And that should be something that leaders need to think about. And you don't think about that when you're at the end of your life. You should be thinking about that at every stage.
Okay, so Leroy, like other dads, you're one of one. And what I mean by one of one is you're the only one on the planet that wants your son to be greater, better, more than you in every way, every category. And you want the same thing for your daughter too, and your wife wants the same thing for your kids too. But you're the only dude on the planet that, and we'll just talk father son for a second. You're the only dude on the planet that wants your kid, your son, to be unlimited, have an unlimited life. The rest of the world's going to tell him what he can't do, what he shouldn't do, that he's not fast enough, he's not smart enough, he's not tall enough, he's not something enough. Teachers and coaches and friends will tell him those things. And so one of the most important roles you have as a father is to let him know as early as you can and often that you're the one of one. And when you give him counsel and you give him a direction, it's not to hurt him. It's because you want him to be better than you. Now, it's his choice. Does he want to be or not? But most kids do. But it's uncanny when I coach people and talk to people, how the people that love them the most, coaches and teachers and friends, are the ones that put limiting factors and beliefs on us. And we have to decide, are we going to adopt their limiting belief about us or not? So your son, in school, it's only a matter of time. Next couple of years, he's going to come home from school one day. Dad, teacher said I couldn't do this. I wasn't smart enough. Or he's going to come home and say, hey, coach said I'm never going to play. I might want to try a different sport. And your son's going to he's probably already made a decision in his mind before he even tells you what happened. And there's going to be times he's going to be told that and he's not even going to tell you what happened. But the best lesson and the best principle, the best approach you can teach your son is to set boundaries, to block out people that tell him what he can and cannot do. And if they tell him that he can, I'm adopting that. So I says, you're smart enough to be a doctor or an astronaut or whatever it is. I'm going, yeah, I know. I'm going to do that. If you don't remember anything else I said today, I want you to remember you're one of one.
No, thank you so much. Much obliged to you. And I'm happy that you have imparted that. You had me there thinking rather deeply, which you have had me been doing throughout this entire conversation. I must say, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've gleaned so much from you, and I hope your listeners enjoy this as much as I have been enjoying this, because this has really been a blessing. And of course, I thank you for those kind words, and I will make that my commitment to ensure that I constantly let him know that everything is possible if he believes it, and he should not accept no one else beliefs above his own. And I'm going to let him know that, and of course, his sibling as well. And I am in that job, of course. As I think it was John Maxwell says, as leaders, we are dealers of hope. And we have to ensure that we combat the negativity and the mental poison, which is so widespread.
Okay, Leroy, if somebody wants to check you out, where can they find you?
Yes, the best place to look for me is at Leroy Roberts on LinkedIn. It's easy. I will also supply a link for the show notes where they can also find me on other socials as well.
Awesome. I'm going to thank you by way of Europe and England being on Pro Mindset today. I hope everybody that's listening benefits today. We talked about primarily family and leadership and company, and I hope everybody found value in it today.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Leroy, thank you. You have a great day.
Thank you as well. You're amazing.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.